science has discovered that galaxies cannot exist without something called dark matter. And basically, what you see with your eyes, what you perceive with your five senses, comprises only 5% of the entire universe. Just 5%. So the 5% is things you can see with your eyes. When you look up at night and you see stars, when a powerful telescopes captures all these beautiful nebulas and galaxies, all of that material stuff, the physical stuff that you can perceive with your eyes or experience with your five senses on this planet, all of that, all of the matter in this entire universe is only 5%. The other 95% is stuff that we do not understand. And we label this stuff as dark matter or dark energy. So dark matter comprises around 27%, and dark energy is 68%. And plus the 5% of matter together makes up the 100% of creation. So we assume that when we talk about creation, we are just talking about, stars and galaxies and things that we see with our eyes. But that's only 5%. And the other 95%, we know it's out there because we can measure it, but we have no idea what it is, and we call it dark matter and dark energy. So galaxies wouldn't exist if it wasn't for dark matter. The reason a galaxy can stay a galaxy and doesn't fly apart as the galaxy spins is because 90% of almost every galaxy is made up of dark matter that holds the stars of the galaxy in place. And if it wasn't for this dark matter, the galaxy would fly apart as it spins. And not only that, but dark matter tends to create these large structures of galaxies as filaments. So it brings galaxies together and organizes these galaxies into superclusters, where you have a bunch of galaxies coming together, known as a supercluster of galaxies. And what is it that brings these galaxies together? It is dark matter. And again, we call it dark matter even though we cannot detect it. We can measure it, we can detect it. It doesn't give off any light. So we have no idea what it is. But it's there because it's holding the galaxy in place and it's bringing countless galaxies together into these large filaments. But yet this 5% of matter that we take so seriously, that we label as atoms and molecules and stars and planets and moons and mountains and rocks and trees, all of that is just 5%. But we give this 5% so much importance that our entire knowledge structure, how we do science, is all based on this 5%. Science is about understanding this 5%, trying to figure out the laws and rules that govern this 5%, cause and effect. You do this and you get that. So we place so much importance on this 5%. And yes, science is trying to understand the other 95%. But until and unless we do understand what that 95% is, we still give a lot of importance to this 5%. Why is that? And we say that mind, consciousness, aliveness is produced by this 5%. Your physical body, of course, is a measly 0.00001% probably of the entire 5%, even less than that probably. But yet this, your brain somehow produces this rich experience of mind. Makes you question what is that other 95%, right? And hopefully we will be able to understand it, but science still is placing this importance that it is some kind of a particle. They're still calling it a particle, even though they don't know if it's a particle. But we are so ingrained in this idea of particles and atoms and molecules, of the physical, what we can experience, that even when we don't understand something, we still assume it might be because of a particle. The other thing I want to talk about here is about this 5%. We assume that this 5% has a beginning and an ending, right? So this 5% came from the Big Bang, and at some point in the future it will end. It'll come to an end. But when we talk about birth and death, beginnings and ends, creation and destruction, we assume that this 5% has to have, or the forms that make up this 5%, human beings, biological organisms, plants, animals, has a start, has a beginning and an ending, right? So for example, my physical body was born at a certain date and a certain time, right? And will end on a certain date and certain time. But if you really think about it, what is birth and death? A sperm and an egg had to come together to begin this creation of my physical body. But where did the ingredients of that physical body come from? It came from the environment, right? My mother had to nourish herself, eat food, and consume the environment. And that essentially became me. And then when I'm out there in the environment trying to survive, I consume the environment, and that grows my body. That nourishes my body and gives me energy. So essentially my physical body comes from the environment, right? And when I die, it's going to go back in the environment. So this idea of birth and death is really, if you think about it, it's a concept, right? It's not factual. It's not what's actually happening. Because the definition of birth is simply the environment coming together to create this physical body. And death is the dissolution of this physical body back into the environment. So what are we really talking about when we talk about birth and death? Are we talking about our consciousness, our awareness, the story of our lives, the things that we like and dislike, who we are really? Right? All of us has physical bodies in that sense that will one day go back to the environment from where it came. But what matters here is the mind, right? The mind that experiences our physical environment, experiences and has likes and dislikes, and goals and ambitions and stories to tell. Our entire lives, the people we love, all of that makes up who we are, really. That is the thing that really matters in the end. And I think that is really what we feel is born and dies, right? So we are more concerned here with the person than we are with the physical body, right? It's the individual, it's the consciousness, the mind that we connect with when we talk to each other, right? When you say you love someone, you are really connecting with them, your mind connecting with their minds. That's how you really know each other. The physical body is just a representation of that mind, right? So it can be perceived, you can perceive each other. So of course you need a physical body. But what I'm trying to get at here is this 5% that we place so much importance on is really just a representation of the real thing, which is mind. Who you are on the inside, your inner universe. That is really who you are. And that is what we say was born and will one day die. Right? Sure, the physical body as well, since that is a representation of that mind, will die as well and simply go back to the environment. But what really matters is the mind. So who you are in essence, and everyone else you see around you, is not really this physical body, but is the person, the individual, the mind that experiences the world, that wants to survive, that has goals and accomplishments, that experiences things, that loves, and that is what matters. That is really what we say is born and will die. But when we are talking about death, surely the physical body will go back into the environment, but what happens to the mind? Does that mind survive? Does that mind move on? Does that mind transcend this physical reality, possibly to some other realm? Do you really want to believe that the mind dies with the physical body? If you assume that it is your brain that produces this mind, produces who you are, then quite possibly you're dead. It's over. The mind is gone. But personally, I do not subscribe to that understanding. I feel that we are much more than our physical bodies, that the mind is really who we are, and mind is prior to the brain. And what you call the brain or the body is a representation, an expression of that mind. So it has to start with mind. It starts with mind. And the physical body is simply a perceived representation of that mind. So it does not start with the body and then mind comes from the body. It starts with mind, and the body is a representation of that mind.